The ModernJeeper Show, the show about Jeeps, Jeeping, and Jeepers.
Well, hey, Modern Jeepers, it's another episode of the ModernJeeper Show with me, Matson from Metalcloak, and Mr. Modern Jeeper, Corey Osborne.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, we're missing Jessy. Where's she at?
She's freezing to death down in Oklahoma.
It has got to be interesting for you guys, though, because she now goes from one direction to the other. She doesn't get any sunny.
No, and it's kind of funny because every time she leaves, it gets nicer here.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know, right?
No, there's nothing there. That's just a thought. Oh, hey, I forgot to get this started. For all of our guys back there, I kind of liked having a little video playing in the background when I do stuff. So the videos I'm playing today, if you happen to be watching this and distracted because you don't want to look at our ugly mugs, are for our friends at TrailNut. You can go to their YouTube channel, TrailNut, and this is a bunch of videos that they've done on their different events, and which including you should be able to see the Death Valley one coming up here soon because we have that
I think that they're I think the most I was talking to Mr. Del Albright this morning and a little bit last night, and we actually went back and we looked at what's that?
Isn't that Sir Del Albright?
Sir Del Albright. I'm just gonna start calling him Mr. Death Valley.
Don't use the death term too much. He's kind of old.
Right. He asked about the ModernJeeper Adventures Facebook page. And, we hadn't really done a whole lot of stuff with it just because we've got a plethora of channels and try to keep things up. But I looked and actually Jim and Deb at TrailNut had posted up their video just a couple of weeks ago on the Death Valley event. So I think maybe we'll revive that in some way, shape, or form. And, I just one more thing.
That's right. Well, the whole thing about being a modern Jeeper is you got a lot going on in your lives because you got to imagine all of our customers and friends and people out there too. It's like to go through the process of, and you do this, we have a lot of freedom, but there are people out here that have like jobs and they have like jobs, like they have to work 9 to 5, 5 days a week or whatever it happens to be. And for them to go through the effort of taking their vacation time and everything and to travel out and be a part of a ModernJeeper adventure, it's pretty cool. It's kind of humbling.
It is. And, we've talked about it before. The flexibility of working on your own or in, being a contractor or anything like that. It sounds great when you want to work for yourself, but when there's no fences on both sides and when you're in an industry like the off-road industry, you end up having very little, you're always on kind of thing. And we get questions throughout the night and I wake up and I've got questions about yesterday. And it's all good. And, this is the year. We're gonna have a better year than last year. So,
well, I'll tell you, it's better than being always off.
Yes,
right.
Very much so.
I think that's called death. And even though we're going to Death Valley is definitely a place of life. It's amazing. So, but you're right. There's so much going on and so many things to do. And I keep looking back. We started 2020 as the year of vision and clarity and all this stuff. And I actually think that that's what worked out because if you think of how we're going into 2021. We've learned a lot about ourselves. We got a lot of vision and a lot of clarity about ourselves and about life and about what was important last year. And,
absolutely.
And we're going into 2021 with this great attitude, a lot of fun. For all of our listeners, I know you might be tired of just hearing us talk the last few weeks, and that's totally understandable. I get tired of hearing myself talk too, but we are working on a whole season of some great interviews and more people and people you wouldn't expect to really even see on the ModernJeeper Show. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing that and bringing people together. In fact, we're obviously the big elephant in the room is that we just finished KOH. I love that term you use, by the way. It's like the big elephant in the room. That's my new term. The big elephant in the room, the big fat pink elephant in the room is KOH. And
right.
Okay, so I did not watch the race on Saturday because I was too busy. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed it was a Saturday race because at least at my office, I could have it going in the background like this.
Right.
But I didn't get it other than going and checking and going, oh, wait, let's see who won. right? Or how did this person do? Or how did this person do? Did you actually get a chance to follow it on Saturday? Did you watch it?
Well, it was weird, all week long I'd kind of been hesitant, not being out there for the first time in a number of years. I think this was going to be like the 8th year of me being out there, and I kind of had it in my mind that it was okay to not be there, and I knew that the more I watched some of the coverage, I was going to be disappointed that I wasn't there. But you know what? It's kind of interesting. I didn't watch a lot of the events for the beginning of the week, and then on Saturday it came around, and I'm like, yeah, for number one, for $35 to sign up
Mhm.
to Ultra 4 Live's
Right.
live coverage at their premium or platinum or whatever they call it, $35 for the year, and there was so much information and the views were so amazing. It was better than being there because typically when we're out there, we only get to see a very, very small portion of the people who run by us. We try to get to another location before the cars make it there. But yeah, so Saturday, I'm like, I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to watch. And then sure enough, I'm sitting at my computer. I turned it on one of the monitors and let it just run and was getting some other stuff done. So yeah, I kind of did pay attention to most of it all day.
Well, I got to say, man, hats off to Dave Cole, to Hammer Gang Productions, to all the guys over there for the level of production. And I don't know, man, whoever was running that drone out at Cougar Buttes,
Yeah.
Cougar Buttes, whoever was running that drone, the footage was phenomenal, man.
Yeah, and
what he
they
did
were
with that-
chasing cars through there,
chasing around and around there and doing, and the
Yeah.
drone work was just, oh man. And I remember at Stampede one year watching the guy with the drone, and it was just one of the rock piles. He was just sitting in his chair, and his thing was, all he was doing was the guys were hitting the rock piles and going across, and he was running the drone just across with them, and then back over to the next one and doing all this close-up work. And it was like, just that was cool. But the control he had, and who knows, maybe it was like super easy AI tech drones now, but that was the coverage was great for what I did see.
I kept waiting for him. I thought he was going to hit a car a couple of times. He would get, and he was moving pretty good too to
Right.
get back to the next, car that was coming through some of the obstacles.
It-
Yeah, great pilot.
And I got to imagine that there must be something within the camera. There's a certain amount of automaticity because you can't be controlling, I don't have a drone. Well, the drone I do have, my father got me. It's kind of cool. I've crashed it more times than I've flown it. So, which is hard to do when you actually calculate that out. But because you have a few drones now, how much control do you have to do with the camera versus?
So,
it
well,
just-
and his drone, there was actually a couple of shots where he was landing it and when they were changing out batteries and stuff, so I could kind of see what he was flying. And we're talking a very large drone. And of course, when we're flying a drone around capturing footage and whatnot, it's all going onto an SD card. We come back and we edit it up and we make it really cool. To have that thing feeding live, yeah, that's beyond my pay grade. I don't have a clue as to the battery consumption. The consumer, even the prosumer drones.
Prosumer, I like that.
Yeah, the a little bit more than just the beginner models, but there's
Right.
a lot of AI that goes into those, where obstacle avoidance and things like
Mhm.
that. Whereas when you're flying manual like that and what he was using, I don't think there's a whole lot of that collision avoidance. It's all you.
Well, I wonder if one person's flying and the other person's, or is there two people, maybe one person handling the camera?
Yeah. So,
Somebody
well,
else
he definitely had a handler there.
Okay.
And he was wearing, goggles.
Oh, he's got he had the full AI head. So he had like
Yeah.
Oculus on.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm
That's-
guessing that probably makes things you're seeing exactly what's going on. Whereas looking out and trying to do that with line of sight is not so bueno.
Yeah, the reason I crashed several times, you get confused, like, okay, what's the front, what's the back? I went forward and it's going backwards. Why is it doing that? And it's also
Right.
all like the
Which
green
way am
light,
I
red light. Wait,
facing?
it's not. I don't know what's happening. Here comes a tree. Land button.
I guess that's my next argument, right? Is okay, drone makers and Facebook, based on our earlier conversation, how come you got to use red and green lights on these things? Because for guys that are colorblind, those are just lights.
So what do you do when you hit a stop sign? You get a stoplight.
So it's all about the position of the light.
So what if you're in a town where it's lateral?
I watch the car in front of me. So if that guy goes, I'm going too.
So what about, there's only what about a small town that just has a flashing yellow or a flashing red light in the center?
Horrible. I end up I go real slow up to the light. Okay, looks like I'm good.
Always better to stop and go than to assume.
Right, that's right.
Boy, well, see, you could do an entire like class action lawsuit against the federal government for setting a standard of red and green lights.
Well, and it's so simple. Like, I mean, red-green color deficiency is fairly common, especially in guys. And for our listeners, Matson and I were on the phone for 30 minutes before we started our podcast, and I was having to have him help me because I couldn't edit a picture because I couldn't see the icons that Facebook used where you would hover over it. So I'm thinking to myself, I can't get this done. And here the icons were there the whole time.
Once again, class action lawsuit coming up against Facebook for not being accessible to those who are colorblind. And it's because it's probably, you'll probably do research and find out it's primarily white males.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
It's white. You have white privilege. I'm not getting political. I'm just making a joke. And if you can't make a joke, then, you got a problem.
That's right.
So, I think, oh, yep. That's Moab. I thought that was a Death Valley video.
Oh, that's just Moab.
Oh, that's just Moab.
Just Moab.
Dude, the Moab one, that's going to be another epic. The question I'm getting a lot on the Moab Adventure from ModernJeeper Adventure, of course, is like, if I do trail 1, what kind of trails you done in the past, and people wanted to know, like, what is the difference between trail 1 and trail 2? And you want to speak to that just to put that out there?
Yeah. And, I think this year and our co-host, Jeremy out at Outlaw Jeep Adventures, we had talked a little bit in the last few months about maybe doing something a little different and not going down the standard typical, hey, let's go do Hell's Revenge. For the people that have been to Moab over and over and over, that's one of the iconic trails in Moab, and everybody runs it. And even for the guys who've run it 100 times, 101 isn't that bad. It's a pretty cool trail. But Moab has a ton of places to offer. And I think maybe we get out a little bit outside of our box and get off the beaten path and do some. It won't be overlanding by any means. It'll still be some significant 4-wheel drive use, but I think there's a lot of stuff out there to see that we haven't even touched. Very similar to what we do with Death Valley. There's just so much land out there. So for the guys that were curious, and we've in the past we've always set up those standards where we'll have 2 days, and 37s or bigger tires, and then the extreme guys and that kind of thing. I'm not sure, and the group can help if we have people that are registered up and just have an open mind. Register up. We can talk about it in the coming days. That's what's nice about Moab is we have some flexibility. We can kind of do anything we want there. So if we got some folks that are like, no, I'm specifically going because I've never been to Moab and I want to do those iconic trails, we will absolutely run those trails. If we
Hell's Revenge is one of those. I mean, being able to say that you went up Hell's Revenge and up to Hell's Gate and I remember that just from our first year doing it, right? And just going up there and taking some of those people through. And the fact that they did that was like the most rewarding moment for them of the trip. And then they got to do the other little epic stuff. Being able to do that together and have everybody go through and everybody standing there and they applaud you when you make it up. And I think there's a certain amount of things to it. But again, it comes to who's showing, and is everybody showing up again? Are they looking for something different? Who's registered? So, I mean,
we've got some guys that are showing up to our Death Valley adventure on 42-inch tall tires. So, that's completely okay.
Hopefully they're geared to not run out of fuel early.
Right. Yeah. Death Valley is a completely different ball of wax from the guys who are thinking these little short, I can go run this trail in a couple of hours. We'll be out there for 3.5 days, basically. So.
And I want to talk more about Death Valley, but the way we do, guys, we jump all over the friggin' place. And if you could keep up with us, you're a genius. So back to KOH, because I mentioned about fuel, and we didn't really even get to start talking about like what was happening in KOH and the whole world there. I mean, I can't believe, and this is where you have a brand new engine you've never run before, because they're all running these Ford NASCAR engines, right, Lauren? And but I don't know what Waylon's running, but Waylon ran out of fuel. Jason ran out of fuel. And I saw that actually happen. It just happened one of those moments I was watching, and all of a sudden he slows down and pulls over. And right after him, somebody else passed him right up, and he jumped up and he gave him a big wave. But and then I think it was Pellegrino crossed the line on
running
empty
out
tank.
Of fuel. Yep.
Right. So now somebody mentioned that that's probably the pit strategy, and that the pit changed, the way the pit layout changed, and that last bit was mainly desert. So if you didn't refuel early on, you might have problems. I didn't follow that enough to know what was happening, what was causing that.
Well, and I think, like you said, it was a combination of those things where new engines and new, there was a couple of guys that ended up with getting flat tires, and they said that was a big problem on their fuel consumption. So you're, all of a sudden you've got two deflated tires, and I think I'm not sure if Jason.
I think Jason might have been that case.
Yeah, I think Jason. I was in front of the monitor going, Jason Shearer is going to wrap this thing up. He was doing really, really well.
Right.
And two flat tires just sucked the fuel out of that car. And that's got that kind of stuff you can't really plan for. His co-driver running all the way back into Hammertown, they created a backpack for him to carry a fuel cell all the way back out there. That's crazy.
That's some of those legendary stories you hear about. Right. I remember that years ago. Was it one of, who was it? Was it Lauren's guy or something back when Lauren had a co-driver? Or was it, I remember the story of somebody running all the way back into Hammertown to get a part, and it's a heavy part. And
so Jacob and Ben
have done that.
They broke down at the kind of the base of Chocolate Thunder, just around the corner of Chocolate Thunder a number of years ago. And I'll never forget. I think it was, Ben stayed at the car. Jacob ran back into Hammertown, and it was they had broken axle and didn't have that particular one. They came back, and it was the wrong side, and he had run all the way back into Hammertown. And it was hot that day.
Wow.
And that kind of stuff is that whole
that's where, ladies and gentlemen, when I decided to stop racing, it's because I had a steering box go out. I was sitting in the pits. My office with my replacement steering box was 5 minutes away. I chose a cold beer in 110 degree weather over fixing a steering box. So that's when I declared myself an amateur, a pure amateur, a pure dilettante, and not a true competitor. I was there for the fun of it, because I just didn't want to go and replace something that at 110 degrees and just to be able to run a race. And that's the difference. The guys that are out there, they're competitive. The guys like the Jason Shearers of the world, the Lauren Healy's, they just do it no matter what. And for our good friends, Kevin and Brittany, right, of Lite Brite, and that's what they did. I mean, they obviously have a competitive streak because, oh my God, she was working hard, and he was out there, and they came in, was it 24th?
25th, something like that. Yeah.
Which is an honor just to finish. If you guys aren't familiar with King of the Hammers, which you should be, it's like just to finish it. Their attrition rate is so high. Just to finish is amazing. And
and I don't have the exact numbers. I think there were 37 or something cars that finished out of more than 100 in the Ultra 4400 class. So just a huge shout out to anybody that goes out there. There's been some interesting stuff come about social media wise, and you mentioned when it stopped being fun is when you kind of got away. I see that our friend Brian Crofts may be selling his car. My comment was made that it's just not that fun anymore. And they had a short course Volkswagen VW Class 11 race.
Class 11, yes.
Yeah, and so I know he raced in that, and maybe that's something you kind of go, what, that brings back the fun into racing. And
well, and that's the thing is Brian went from like racing basically a Jeep, right?
Yep.
He had a Jeep. He had a little built Jeep, that little LJ. Wasn't it LJ?
Yeah.
built LJ, and he was just it had a lot of fun with that, and then he kind of grew up with it. And next thing you know, he's driving this big old massive rig, and those type of that change is just, do you really go from do you want to be a Lauren Healy whose goal it is in life to be a professional racer and make a living as a professional racer, or do you just enjoy the amateur status of it all? And there's nothing wrong with amateur racing, and that's but now you have this whole other world, and let's talk about it, because you mentioned Jacob and Ben Veroza, who were 4200 class. Great Jeep, Jeep guys. They built this TJ up. They had this beautifully done TJ. It was everything of a TJ. It was a true 4600 class car, all to every true principle of the 4600 class. And they ended up being the point where they actually won their class. They worked their way every year, did better and better, and ended up winning their class. Sold that car over to Dawson Ellington, Baby Jeep Racing, and he raced and did really well his first few years. And then this year he ended up doing the 4500 class, which he actually finished. And I think he got 4th or 5th in his class,
something like that,
which is great. But then you have this thing that all of a sudden is thrown out at us, and we will say that we heard early on from one of our friends that Ford was going to be doing some 4600 Broncos. But the thought was, here's a Bronco, build it into a 4600 car. And the one that he reached out to us about it was actually wanting to use the Duraflex joints in his suspension build for the 4600 class Bronco. Well, apparently that's not how it went, because all of a sudden we see these racing, this corporate built series of cars that are 4600, and for our guys, I'm putting up my quote fingers, 4600 class Broncos that are all going to be spec'd. They're spec'd Broncos. They're built specifically to Ford's racing specifications to race the rest of the season at a bunch of races out there as 4600 cars by the top racers, the Lovell brothers, the Lauren Healy, Jason Shear, Vaughn. I mean, they're all racing these. To me, and no offense, it is a 4600 class car. It seems to match it, but that seems a little bit like what Everyman Challenge was not supposed to be.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, I think when Dave created the EMC class, it was because the sport was becoming for the wealthy and for the pro team and that kind of thing. And I guess we're in one of those industries where the envelope's always going to get pushed, and people are always going to look at that the rule book for that class and push it. And I remember back in the day, Larry McRae, when he was a Poison Spider still, and they built that car. Basically, it was a ground up build to race in that EMC class, and people went, wait a minute, that's not what it's supposed to be like. But you know what? As a competitor, Larry being extremely competitive, they were going to build a car that could win the race. And here's Ford now backing these cars, and I don't know. I mean, as much as I know that Jessy wants to go out there and race or even co-drive for somebody just to experience it, for me the weight of the reality of it is too much for me to wrap my head around. I know I just see dollar signs and going, wow, this is just like giving money away. But I understand there's some drive that people have. They want to go out there and race. I mean, to take a car that you spend 50, let's call it just 50 grand to just pick up some beater and go out there, and literally when you finish, it's not worth anything. I mean, you might as well just take it to the salvage yard.
Right. You're lucky like me and sell my CJ off to another guy who uses it for a little while and then sells it to another guy who uses it for a little while. The greatest value that CJ has is this little piece of metal wrapped around the tube that is a grandfathered in tech inspection.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, right.
It's already tech cleared. You're good. It's good. You're good to go. So it is interesting because I just don't know how, if this is the future of the race. And we know Ford is putting a lot of money into it. Jeep is out and Ford is in. And they're using this incredibly well to launch the Bronco and make the Bronco seem legit. I don't know if you watched, but some of the pieces they did with Lauren Healy driving up, and they just going right up some of that. I mean, it was pretty impressive what that Bronco did with Lauren Healy behind the wheel and going and doing the buttes, doing some other areas, doing the entire track for the pre-qual.
Oh, right.
That was impressive. And
and here you have a new class this year with the EV vehicle.
Right.
Crazy. A guy, the only guy in his class. He finishes the race though, and he's strictly electric.
He got first place.
Right. Yeah. First place, the only place. There was no first loser in that class. And I think maybe that is a sign that you get these guys out there running out of fuel. And obviously, you had mentioned that he changed batteries once.
At least once. It was while it happened. I remember them doing a whole live shot on it, and it was a bit of a process. It took a long time. It was not an easy thing to change, and he had to change his batteries. But what I understand and what I heard is that he actually works for Tesla. So maybe this will get Elon Musk's interest in it, and who knows? Maybe they'll do because he was using apparently a Nissan Leaf batteries,
Gotcha.
which probably didn't necessarily make Tesla happy. So,
and Jeep is chomping at the bit, with the release of the 4xe, the hybrid car. We're seeing now that the concept is coming out here in the next month or so. They're going to unveil a completely electric Jeep. So,
tell us about that. I haven't read much on it. So,
I don't know a whole lot. I just know that there's been a lot of comments on it online about what the expectation is, and again, we're going down this road. Didn't the governor of California say something about they're gonna outlaw gas powered vehicles in 5 years or some crazy thing?
There's some head specs is like by 2035 that you can't have any more. It's this whole big thing that you can't sell. No new gas powered vehicles will be allowed to be sold. Now that doesn't mean all of it. Doesn't mean hybrids. Doesn't mean diesels are okay. I mean, there's a whole wide range on how that works. But yeah, these big broad goals that would make California the first state to not have any more new cars. But it doesn't mean anybody's going to get rid of their stuff. We're all going to still have our gas powered, burners and our fun Jeeps and all of our stuff. We're throwing LSs in there because we don't need to, but we want to. So yeah, who knows what the future holds there. But it's interesting with that class to see what that means for next year. Does that inspire other people now to enter that class next year with a super lightweight rig? I mean, you think about it. He had a Toyota truck, super lightweight compared to a Jeep, or you can even see somebody doing something even lighter like a Cherokee, right? The whole unibody rigs. The Cherokees do great out there, and you start doing electric with that. And what are the parameters going to be? Does a hybrid qualify? Yes, no. Yeah, is it pure electric? I mean, where does that draw? And then of course, the real competitors start getting real gamey with it.
Right.
Because you figure his was essentially a motor to a transfer case. It was an electric motor to a transfer case, right? A properly built electric could have a motor on each wheel, which gives it all that extra torque specs, all that. But then what breaks down on the trail? I mean, my God, imagine that. It's
and what Jeep has released so far is kind of just this. I don't know. It's more or less an artist rendition, and the underneath of it basically shows a single electric motor, and it'll probably have like a 2-speed transfer case. They're saying they're gonna bring it to Easter Jeep Safari.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I know that their little background, we all know our buddy, which one of these days, hopefully they can get him on the podcast. I've been asking him time, is Trevor over at WFO. And his brother, Bo, who has his own company, who has done work for Tesla. The rumor mill for a long time was that he was actually working, like he had an own little project Jeep that he was working on. He was working with his buddies over at Tesla to try to build just a fun Jeep that was pure electric. I don't know where that is in the pipeline now, but it'd be interesting to see what can come out of this new EV world, because these electric vehicles, they're no joke. They're no joke.
For sure, for sure. And I don't know what. So we're talking about KOH, and then of course we just had the Super Bowl take place. On top of that, on Sunday, and I'm just got to throw out there the whole Jeep commercial with Bruce Springsteen. They bring in the boss. I don't know. I don't know what people thought. I saw that it was getting pretty beat up online, but then some people really enjoyed it. So yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, you can always be a fan of somebody's. I always believe it's okay to be a fan of somebody's creative work, and not to be a fan of the person themselves. Only because of politics. Like, I enjoy watching Ted Danson. I mean, he's a funny guy, and he's done some funny stuff. But I wouldn't want to sit back and have dinner with the guy talking politics. Just not
right.
The things that's true about many people on the left. Have a guy like Bruce Springsteen, who is like that Made in America guy, right? The picture of the hat in his back pocket with the American flag. You think like this guy is he's a welder. He's a fabricator. He's done pipe work, but have such a different political view than I do is just interesting. The choice of doing that ad was kind of interesting. The choice of using him, where he's kind of going back to his roots in this
right.
whole area about unity and coming together. For some people that don't know his politics, probably worked because he's still like the American Made in America guy.
Sure.
For guys who do know his politics, they go, that doesn't work for me. And then it makes you wonder, like, who made that decision? Was it a FCA decision here at the Jeep corporate level? Or did it go up to a point where you have, this international company going, oh, we're going to spend this much money on the Super Bowl. We're going to do this. And here's how it's going to be. So I don't know. I think the unity message was interesting, but it's also making a presumption, which is that we weren't unified. Right. And suddenly we can be unified. But that's a whole political discussion that I don't want to get into today.
Yeah, no, I think it was the timeliness of it was interesting. And like you said, who knows what thoughts are. I'm disappointed in the fact that if we go forward, we're going to see more and more political involvement through our entertainment type of channels. We're not. It's kind of like that whole, when you get together with your family around a dinner table, there's those few things you just really don't bring up: religion, politics, things like that. And that seems to be kind of a little bit of a crossover now. So I'm curious what our listeners thought of it, and if you guys want to comment, comment on YouTube, comment on ModernJeeper.com. What do you think of the commercial, and what do you think going forward?
And absolutely. In fact, let's post an article on ModernJeeper.com with that commercial, with specifically as an opinion editorial, like what do people think of it, and see what they think.
That's a good idea.
That's an interesting discussion point, and something we can share with our friends at Jeep. It is when you have an iconic American brand. I have struggled as of late. I go back to the beginning of the JK and how explosive the JK market became for all of us, right? And part of that explosion came from the advertising campaign, which was very hyper-focused on, like, the housewife. You can have a very inexpensive, beautiful, fun, adventurous convertible by buying a Jeep JK. And that worked. And it worked very well. And the initial ads that were coming out about the JL and the JT, I just looked at and went, what are they trying to do? I mean, the Jeremy Renner ads. I mean, it wasn't even Jeremy Renner as an Avenger or as something cool. It was Jeremy Renner because he likes to go to dive bars and play music. And I'm sorry, most times that actors are very famous for something, you also try to do music. There may be a fan or a following, but Russell Crowe, David Hasselhoff, Jeremy Renner, I mean, they're not known for their music. No. In most circles, right? They're known for their characters. So it was disappointing to see that. Like, what are you trying to communicate here? I kind of get the same thing. Like, are you really trying to communicate? Are you trying to, versus like one of my favorite pieces Jeep ever did is when they were launching the JL. It was just this, it was the two headlights. It was a black background. They had the two round headlights, and then they had words in between
Oh
that
yeah,
were like
yeah.
freedom, discovery, boom, in between
Yep.
acting as the grill.
Yep.
That was incredible because it really spoke to what Jeep was all about, the heritage, the growth, that type of thing. That to me was like that's how you scream America and unity, is like, this is what we all want. Not
Absolutely. It's been interesting over the course of the last couple of years as manufacturers start to, they're rethinking, it seems to me, just about everything that has created the Jeep brand and the reason the lifestyle has been so popular. Now we've got, the infiltration of the knockoff products and these kind of things. I don't know. I just don't know if the newer rigs, we had when we had Rick Payway on a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that Jeep's kind of focused on making sure, and I get it, it's because of these guidelines that the manufacturers have to abide by, but they're focused on kind of not wanting us to modify our vehicles, and we'd seen that through some legislation that was kind of coming through SEMA, and SEMA kind of was stepping in as to say no, 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 the manufacturers are going to continue to be able to modify vehicles, but as these computers and the technology increases, then we can't really tap into that stuff. I'm having just purchased the Gladiator. Oh my gosh! Still, I'm just blown away at all the electronics. Like I typically I get my mail, which is out in front of the house here, and I'll just hop back in and I'll drive through my gate with the door open. No,
no,
can't do that. Can't move the vehicle with and I'm like, really? I can't make that decision anymore. Like, let me just keep the door open and drive forward. No, it auto park. You got to put it back in park and shut the
It gets all
door and
screws up and it gets all messed up. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
it is. And it's that whole idea, there's probably some 2,000 computers inside of that thing. Right.
Oh,
And
between what started with the wheel sensors, and then you've
Mm.
got all of these things that are in order to help us, the consumer, be safe. I don't know. I'm skeptical.
That's where you get that 4xe. You start thinking about that. Like, do you really want to take that on the Rubicon? Do you really want to go on a trip on the Rubicon with this thing that with all those more additional computers on it?
Well, and you get the little card. I was just looking through the Gladiator's glove box, and of course I've got the little card that has the roadside assistance, and I can't wait to use that at Death Valley. Yeah.
Well, you got to test it.
I'm.
So wait. Are you taking the Gladiator to Death Valley?
I am.
Nice.
I hope. I mean, I watched Jeremy drive it through, and he didn't leave it out there or anything. So I'm hoping it'll bring me back.
Well, it's a good rig. If I come out, I'm bringing mine.
I did buy a new accessory though, and this is kind of my I guess we could have this be my tech tip, or our accessory
gadget of the week.
Gadget of the week.
The ModernJeeper gadget of the week.
We're really getting outside of the technological advances of the new Jeep, and so my gadget of the week is a Spork. But for the overlanding guys, I don't know. I think it's like made out of titanium or something. And it's got all the tools I need. I mean, I can eat, I can stab my food, I can open a bottle or a can, and it's got a little wrench thing up here at the top.
Wow.
So I'm just bringing this in the Gladiator, and
that's it. You should be good. Can you kill an animal with that and skin it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's a small tomahawk.
All right. You made me. I got to get something. Hold on.
Yeah, I think that as we go forward, that maybe this is where we don't have to buy accessories for our Jeeps anymore. We can just buy some simple. This is the CRKT eating tool, is what it's called, and all I need is to eat.
Well, can you actually is it comfortable to hold if you're like sitting there eating dinner, or are you gonna have to like?
I'm going to wear it around my neck and make a little necklace out of it because I'll lose it, I'm sure.
Send it to us. We'll gold. Is it? Oh, you said it's titanium, so you probably can't really.
Yeah, maybe.
It better not be aluminum. Yeah, it's bad for you. But then again, it's got to handle the wrenching, so it's got to be something. That's
Yeah, it's
strong.
probably. Oh, it's an MAH design. Meh,
Mm. Meh, meh,
meh
meh, meh.
design.
So
Yeah.
I had to grab this one. You remember
Oh
when
yeah,
these
there you
came
go.
out? Yep, the
Yep.
multi-tool. It's the
That's all you
Jeep
need.
Gladiator, and of course this one's gold. And this was given to me by our friend Clark Hill, who got it. I think he was given it on Ultimate Adventure, not Ultimate Adventure. It was, what was
Um,
it? The trail to
the Jeep and Drive event, I
the
think we
Jeep and
got it.
Drive event to Moab,
Yeah.
yeah. And Clark Hill was on there, and he got the gold one, and came over to the CTI area and gave this to me.
See, the
And
problem with that is there's no spork.
I know. I was kind of hoping. Well, it does have a knife, so if I immediately use my
Stab it.
fingers, I can
Right.
cut my meat, but I can't like pick it up. It does have a little hook in the back. I can try to like hook it.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's funny, but that's awesome. I love that. That's what a great tool. What a great
Well,
tool.
and I got this because of Ultimate Adventure, and I always remember, it'd be time to eat something, and I'd be digging around, going, I don't have a spoon, so I actually bought two, and the other one is actually on my keychain, but it's about this big, so it's maybe an
Is
inch
that
and a
a
half, and it
fold-up?
is just a spork.
It's just a spork. Okay.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
folding one.
Right. Somebody had made fun of me because I will typically have like those little applesauce, the little plastic applesauce tear off containers, or
Yeah.
yogurt or something like that. Well, I just tear the lids off and fold the lid kind of in half, and I make that my spoon. And
Oh,
people look at me like, "What are you, some kind of hillbilly? Like, what are
that's
you doing?"
that's clever. That's brilliant. I think
Well, yeah, they all come with a spoon. You just take the top and fold it.
right. And actually using it, because it never made sense to me. Like the problem with those things, you take off the top and you can't just like have a couple bites and put it back. You got to like
Yeah, you
get
gotta
done. It's like
you
forces you.
drink it.
You're sucked into like finishing the whole thing rather than be able to save it to later. They
Oh,
get you.
reusable lids. Hmm,
There you go. Yeah, like
interesting.
lids that pop off and go back on, like
Yeah.
plastic. They go pop. Yeah, whatever. So my little gadget isn't really a gadget, but it's something that there's a Canadian magazine, 4WD.com. You may be familiar with them, right? And
Mhm.
it's like the big Canadian magazine up there. We get emails from them, and they've done stuff on us in the past. And they recently sent an email, and I was thinking, this is kind of weird. And then I was like, you know what? For some people, it's kind of cool. But what it is you can go to their site, 4WD.com, and you can submit a picture of your rig in a configuration. Just all they want is a side view, right? You send it to them, and then you can get your rig on a t-shirt or some other thing. I mean, it's a super simple, easy thing to do. They did it, but you can actually have your rig on a shirt, and you can do it. I guess you can do it with the 4WD graphics or not, but it's kind of like it's just a custom shirt. Now,
Huh.
there's nothing innovative about that. You can go to cafepress.com and do the same thing and have a bunch of stuff made with your own shirts. It costs a lot more than they are doing, but it was just this little weird thing that they did. It's like, you know what? We created this thing. People wanted to have it with their own. Sure, here you go. So it's a little submission process. You just go in there and you have your rig put on a t-shirt. Probably can have it put on a mug too, or something else. Or I think they do a magnet. Like you can actually have your rig as a magnet for your
There you
fridge.
go.
I mean, it's just a cool little thing, right? And for those that really, because we put so much effort and love into our rigs, it's like, why go and wear somebody else's rig on your shirt when you should be wearing your own?
Right. I don't want to advertise somebody else's Jeep on my
Which
body.
lends itself. If somebody else out there wants to do something like this, I mean, imagine going to companies like, say, Metalcloak or to a Raceline and says, hey, we want to set up a generic template for Raceline in all their shirts. And customers that have a Raceline rig, they send it to us, and it has this template. It's almost like, you used to go to the fair and you could go in and take a photo, and they'd
Yeah.
put you in like some generic template background. It's the same thing. Like we would produce a shirt for them with that Raceline template, but it would have their rig on it and would look like a Raceline shirt.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think people could do that. I mean, it's easy enough to do. It wouldn't be cheap. One-offs never are. You can pay $30 for a shirt that in mass production might cost you 20 or 15.
Sure.
But to have a custom shirt that's all that way, I mean, that'd be really cool. maybe we have to do that for Modern Jeeper Adventures, one of the trips, maybe the Rubicon trip where everybody gets their own vehicle on their own shirt.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. That would be kind of cool.
You heard it here first, folks. Anybody else does that, I'm going to sue you.
That's right. Yeah. Can't take those ideas. No, I don't take them.
Speaking of which, we got a lot of great stuff for Death Valley. I know we were going to talk more about it, but we wanted to keep this episode fairly short. But here's the deal, guys. Death Valley, Corey has said it before. We've said it. We've got all kinds of cool stuff coming from our sponsors and our supporters. Metalcloak, for everybody who registers, you're getting your shirt and this new bottle, brand new bottle. I don't know if anybody's seen this one. The blue bottle is going to everybody.
Ooh, those are cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally cool. It's blue versus if you've got it in the past, you got the red one, you have the blue one. Maybe you have to collect all three, and we'll do a white one at some point. But
there you go.
But you get the Metalcloak a blue bottle. You're going to get all kinds of other stuff and swag and things and that. And that's just at the beginning. I mean, and then the memories and the participation and going out and doing stuff and have it in a small group. There's some other events happening, and those are interesting, but those are much larger groups and much larger things that are happening.
Very true. Very true.
And this is just this opportunity to have a world-class guide and his apprentice, that being Dell and Corey,
right? Yeah.
Going out and taking you through this area of the world that is just phenomenal. I think no, that's something else behind us. I keep waiting for the Death Valley the video to pop up, because I just play all on their channel. But,
there's so much history that goes along, and Dell's been in contact. We've had some change of ownership of up at Cerro Gordo, which the second trip last year we got to go up to Cerro Gordo, and then they had a fire and some of the buildings burnt down and whatnot. But again, the history of a place it's just so special, and I don't have words to describe what it was like to spend, I was out there 8 days last year, and now I'm like, I'm a junkie. Like, I want to read all the books, and I want to know all the stories, and I wish you'd go back in time and meet the people, places like Ballarat, where you've got a dad and a couple of sons out there in the middle of nowhere that run this little country store, and
3-person town. I mean, come on, where else are you going to see that?
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's the stories. So much of it is how the West, it reminds me of just how the West was one kind of thing, and people that came out here looking for gold. And it's a lot like Colorado. It's a lot like Moab. There's a backside of all of this land that we go and we run around on it because it's cool, because we want to do extreme things with our Jeeps. But the history and the real story behind it all, and the people that explored it first, it's just so special, and I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's like anything. Every year you do the Rubicon Trail, it's different. Yeah. Every year you do Moab, it's different. Every year you do Death Valley, you may think that it's going to be the same. It's not. It's different.
It's not.
There's something else going on, and it's so variable, because we may discover things along the way, like the first trip, how we discovered the free cabins that were there, and we decided that's where we're gonna camp out. And it could happen again. I mean, just be on a whim. As a group, we decided, hey, let's stop here, let's do this, and let's be a part of that, and just have the fun and enjoyment and the memories.
Oh yeah, I started creating maps, because we're going to create these little guidebooks this year, and give kind of an idea for people to kind of go, oh, okay, that's where we were and that's where we're going. But there's so many options, and there's so many opportunities, and literally things can change hour by hour out there. So it'll give everybody a definite idea of where we're going. But even for me to go back and look at the trails we did last year, even the first 2 trips were different from one to the other. So this year, the first trips, we're going to start from Beatty, Nevada. And then the second trip, we're going to start from Lone Pine, which we started both trips from Lone Pine last year. So again, they're going to be a little bit different. Probably see, again, we always want to see the highlights and the really cool places, but in between, you just never know what's going to happen.
Right. And we got some great people part of trip 2 as well, like Ricky, who's been a guest in the show and is a friend of the show.
Yeah,
coming all the way out from Florida.
That's
to
right.
join you on trip 2. And I think he just checked which one I wasn't going to be on. And then, yeah, I don't want to hang out with Matson.
Well, Philip's going to come out, you know,
Philip's
the guy
gonna be
behind the
there.
scenes on the forum and whatnot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have Jim and Deb again. It'll be good. It'll be a good event.
So if you guys are listening to this, it's Thursday morning when this show goes live. There is only a few days left to register, and then it's done. It's cut off and you're out. So, and you have two possible trails to go on, 2 possible trips. So don't waste the time. Take the time. Go ahead and register and come out and join us, because you know we the more the merrier, and the opportunity to be with people and learn and meet, and that's the big thing. And I warn you ahead of time, and don't come back and blame me, but I warn you, 2 things are going to happen. One, you're going to end up being addicted like Corey is now.
Yep.
Which is a strange thing to be addicted to Death Valley, but it happens. It can happen. Or 2, you actually might meet people that are friends forever.
Very, very true. And you know, I will share some feedback that we've had, and people say, you know, man, if you guys cut that price in half, you'd have 3-4 times as many people, and that is never going to be our goal. This is a small, intimate event where to sit around a campfire with 4 or 5 of your friends is really what it's all about. And the Park Service has been very good to us. We're building a relationship through these National Park Service folks, and you know, we're coming out of a year that was very tough, and we haven't really done a whole lot of promotion of these adventures, and that's on purpose. You know, we don't want 50 people to sign up, because that takes away from this feeling of getting out there and getting, especially in a place like Death Valley. It's important to be out there on the land with just a couple of people around. To be in a large group, well, I can go be in a large group in downtown Vegas. That's not my deal.
Right. There are definitely those events that cater to large groups, and there are plenty of those out there. In fact, if you pick up the ModernJeeper calendar at Metalcloak.com, that ModernJeeper calendar has all the events out there that are focused on large groups.
That's right.
And there's great ones if that's what you want, that big group camaraderie. If you want an intimate group where you're getting very personal touch, personal friendship, and a chance to really to get a sense of history. And for those who thought that think about the Death Valley price, because we had that comment a couple of people, well, that's outrageous. Recognize, I don't think there's any other event you're going to be going through where you're actually going to have, throughout the time you're driving on highways and everywhere you're going, a history lesson.
Right.
You will come out of there recognizing that there is a core reason Death Valley is Death Valley, and why it's history to our country and to the West and to California, why California is so beholden to that area, because the people that did and started it and the stuff that they did in Death Valley, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's beyond me. And I think we have to sometimes remember what it took to get this country to where it's at, to appreciate where it's at.
Oh, very well said. Very well said.
Well, that being said, Modern Jeepers, thank you so much for joining us in another great episode. I think we've covered a lot in this very short period of time. And as we said, starting next week, we have some great interviews coming in, and we're going to do more and more interviews the rest of this year. It's one of our goals, including some interesting companies. Like I said, some people that you probably would not expect to have on this show. But it's all about that. It's all about bringing people together, and we're all Jeepers all the time. And we just appreciate all of you. But since you're on here, and if you're watching this on video, please click that subscribe button. Click the subscribe button. So you're subscribed to our channel. Share it with your friends if you liked what we're talking about. If you don't like what it's talking about, still share with your friends or your enemies, whatever. Just share it. And really take the time to go and subscribe, whatever, on your podcast player, and share your comments, because that's how other people discover it and learn the value of Corey and Matson, and sometimes Jessy sharing all of our insight into the world of Jeeping.
That's right.
Well, my friends, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the trails.
Cheers.